Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Nightreign, and in today's video we're going to deep dive into Ironeye, one of the most useful but surprisingly misunderstood classes in Elden Ring Nightreign. Despite what some players think, Ironeye is not just an easy mode archer. His true potential lies in understanding his mechanics, skill usage, weapon scaling, relic setup, and even some hidden interactions you've probably never heard of. So in this video I'll break down his abilities, optimal gear, recommended relics, upgrade priorities, how to easily complete his Remembrance Quests, and of course how to make the most of his ultimate in real fights. So without any further ado, let's jump straight in. As you probably already know, Ironeye is designed as a bow-focused class, but if you watched any of my previous Nightreign videos, you know that scaling always comes first when picking weapons. Ironeye has high dexterity, decent arcane scaling, but low vitality and average stamina. That makes him fragile, but he can deal decent damage. So while you theoretically can equip katana weapons, dual blades, or even whips and deal a lot of damage up close, on this class I still recommend using light bows in about 85% of your runs. That's because Ironeye simply doesn't have the health pool to trade damage up close. Some strong bosses can easily one-shot you, especially at lower levels, and that's why you have to keep the distance. So yeah, stick to the light bows most of the runs, and pay attention that I said light bows, not just any bows. Please, for God's sake, do not use heavy bows on Ironeye. They may look cool, but they're slow, scale of strength, and will absolutely get you killed on this class. So if you want to use anything other than a light bow, make sure it scales with dexterity, not strength, and also that it's fast enough that you'll always be able to dodge. Now let's move on to Ironeye's passive ability, character skill, and ultimate art. Here's how they work and how to use them to their full potential. Ironeye's passive ability, Eagle Eye, is one of the most underrated passives in the game, and most players don't even know how it works. With Eagle Eye, your entire team gets an increased drop rate from enemies and a better chance to find rare upgrades and loot from bosses. In practice, this means that you and your teammates will find legendary weapons much more often, which is super important. Ironeye's character skill is called Marking. When you use it, Ironeye dashes forward with a dagger, slashing through enemies in his path and applying a special debuff to all of them. While marked, enemies take 10% more damage from all sources for about 17 seconds. If you deal about 30% of their max HP while the mark is active, the enemy gets staggered and takes a big burst of extra damage. So yes, it's super useful. Use this skill as often as possible. It will help you clear out bosses much faster. Though there are a few more things that you have to know about the skill to use it effectively. First off, when you're attacking, you don't need to hit the mark itself. It's just a visual effect that shows that the buff is active. It's not a weak point despite what in-game description implies. It also works on multiple enemies at once, though probably the most important feature of the skill is that this dash actually counts as a dodge, meaning you also get iframes using it. Also remember that this dash gets you further than a regular dodge, and you can even pass through enemies, making it super easy to dodge any attack using this skill. Personally, I just like to jump through the boss, and that way I very rarely get hit. And here's also something most players don't realize. You can actually curve the dash mid-cast, so it's not locked to straight lines like regular dodges. Oh, and one more thing. Even outside of combat, this skill helps with mobility. Spam it while moving around the map and you'll get to objectives at least a bit faster. Ironeye's ultimate art is called Single Shot. You fire a massive arrow from a giant bow, piercing through everything in its path. As with most ultimates in the game, it deals solid AoE damage, applies stagger, and makes you invisible during the casts. What makes this ultimate art so special is its range. You can literally snipe enemies and revive teammates from across the arena. Sounds amazing, right? Well, in theory, yeah, but there's a huge problem, and it all comes down to a stupid camera bug which makes it impossible to use this ult at its full potential. When you aim and fire a single shot without locking onto target, the game for some some reason messes with your camera during the cast. It jerks to the side and your arrow flies in the wrong direction, which obviously sucks, especially if you're trying to revive a teammate from afar away. Most people don't know that you can actually fix it by going into settings and turning off cinematic effects. With that setting disabled, Ironeye will fire exactly where you were aiming without weird camera shifts. So if you want to use this ult as a long-range revive, this setting is essential. By the way, note that you can also easily interrupt some of the boss's nukes with this ultimate art, though you have to be quite experienced at the game to really know which attacks are actually interruptible. Now that we've covered scaling, skills, and his ultimate, now let's talk about how Ironeye actually plays during runs, and which upgrades you should be picking along the way. The core idea is simple. You are a range spam machine. Your whole job is to keep distance and constantly deal damage with arrows, while occasionally debuffing enemies. Because you'll be attacking more than anyone else on your team, your number one priority stat is stamina. The more stamina you have, the less you'll need to pause between attacks. Though at the same time, remember to always pick up HP upgrades if you get the chance. They are more rare on this class than stamina upgrades, but they are absolutely worth taking, because Ironeye is very squishy by default. Some final boss attacks will just one-shot you, especially if you're not at max level. As for passives on secondary weapons, here's what you should be looking for. Improved range weapon attacks is always good for this character. Projectile damage drop-off reduction. It's super useful because with this you can keep longer distances without serious damage penalty. Also remember that items with red hand icon, a passive that only works when equipped, are always useful on Ironeye, because you can just equip it in your offhand, then double hand your bow. That way the passive still works and you're not sacrificing anything, unlike you would on other classes. So to sum it up, when it comes to upgrades, you're mainly looking for stamina, max HP, and anything that boosts range damage. Also, you can easily use weapons with red hand passives. Now let's talk about actual combat flow. Because you're constantly moving and attacking from range, Ironeye is one of the best classes in the game for reviving teammates. You will usually have distance and line of sight. Just make sure to double hand your bow and manually aim when reviving. You have to do that because if you rely on auto target lock and there's a boss standing near the downed player, the game will lock onto the boss instead, and there goes your revive. Also, don't be afraid to get close occasionally. Ironeye has access to a triple shot heavy attack that deals double damage compared to a regular shots, if all 3 arrows hit the target. To perform this attack on keyboard, you'll have to hold Ctrl and press left click. If you play on a controller, just press R2 or right trigger. Just remember that this only works well point blank, otherwise you'll whiff 2 out of 3 arrows and deal much less damage than you should be. Though usually it's not a big problem to use this attack point blank against any boss except the final one, because usually you just stagger them and after that you can safely position yourself close to them. By the way, here's a bonus tip. Triple shot can also revive teammates faster, since it dumps more damage in less time, but only if you're very close to them. Now let's move on to relics. Despite what many players think, most of the game's relics are actually garbage and don't do that much, but there are some solid ones that can really benefit Ironeye. The one I rely on the most is the relic that restores stamina on successful hits. I mentioned earlier how Ironeye is all about constant damage, and this effect lets you keep attacking without running out of stamina every few seconds. You can get this passive effect from Night of the Beasts, which drops from the very first boss, so the chances are you already got this relic in your inventory. Another relic I almost always run is Edge of Order, mainly for its second effect, which boosts bow damage by a flat 10 points. This might not sound like a lot, but early on it's huge. To put it in context, the starting bow deals around 30 damage per shot. Add this relic and you're suddenly hitting for 40. That's a massive jump in the early game. Later on, sure, it starts to fall off a bit, but it's still often much better than a relic that gives you just +2 dexterity or something minor like that. There's also one relic I always recommend using, and honestly, it's great no matter what class you're playing. I'm talking about the Grand Burning Scene that gives you a Stone Sword key at the start of every expedition. This basically means 1 extra Evergale boss per run, which is super useful. The other effects on that relic look fine on paper, but in my experience, none of them come close to how useful that free key is early on. Note that this relic is not a random drop. You'll be able to buy it from the merchant at some point. Also, I know that some people are praising that one relic that gives Ironeye additional character skill use, but me personally, I found other relics that I mentioned a bit more useful than this one, but still it's a decent pick. And by the way, if you're wondering, I use Ironeye's chalice in the most of the runs. Now let's talk about Ironeye's Remembrance Quests. I'm not gonna drag you through all the base dialogue. Let's just focus on what you actually need to do during expeditions to complete quests as soon as possible. The first quest is pretty simple. Head to the far left side of the map and take out the trader. You don't even need to kill the final boss to complete the quests. Just beat the guy and you're done. You can usually handle it solo by level 7 or 8, so you can easily do it with randoms. Once it's done, you'll unlock Ironeye's chalice and get the cracked ceiling wax. Not the strongest relic, but it's fine if you've got nothing better. The second quest is a bit more involved because this time you'll need to actually beat the final boss, specifically the Dark Drift Knight. I'm not a huge fan of the fight, but I wouldn't call it one of the harder ones either. Once you win, you'll get the Edge of the Order relic, after sitting through another round of dialogue, of course. By the way, if you're ever confused about where to go or who to talk to during these quests, just open the map. It always marks the NPC which you need to talk to. The last remembrance is one that unlocks Ironeye's special skin, and it has one specific requirement. You'll need to beat the final boss of the last expedition, the Night aspect. But that's not all. In the final location, do not offer the rune. You have to choose the option to cut this guy's throat instead. If you give him the rune, the quest won't be complete, and you'll have to do the whole thing again. I learned that the hard way. And that's it for this Ironeye's guide. Hopefully you learned a few things, maybe even some mechanics you didn't know existed. If there's anything I missed, or if you've got your own Ironeye's tricks, drop them in the comments. I usually read every single one of them. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I've got more Nightreign guides coming soon. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.